have to do a presentation, here's what you do. I want to give you this. This is exactly what you do. The only regret in life is regret.
A year from now, just wish if I started today.
Now, here's another controversial thing. There is no such thing as not being nervous. You're always going to be nervous. So what's the answer?
People don't understand that public speaking is not only for a presenter. Communication isn't only for networking, it's for life.
So here's how you get over the ums and ahs. Here's how you deal with nerves, not overcome them. If you're really shy, you're not good at presenting, English is not your first language. There's two things that I think you need if you really want to be good at like connecting.
And we are live, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pashanite Club. Our next guest isn't only just the best public speaking coach out there. He's also emceed at the Pan Am Games, Olympics, and FIFA. He's also an author as well as a part-time dancer. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Yvonne.
What's up, everybody?
Yvonne, it's a pleasure.
Good to see you. And where did the name Pashanite come from?
Okay.
Is it like, because at first I wasn't sure if it was like a family name or like a play on words, like you're trying to be all posh, like, look at my watch, look at my watch.
So essentially, I think when I was in grade 9.
This isn't like a toxic masculinity
No. You're fine on that.
I'm messing with you. I'm messing with you.
But what it came from when I was in grade 9, I wanted to be a YouTuber, right? And I was like, okay, well, I should be passionate about this. And my last name is Pasha. So then I was like, if I put those two together, but that lasted 2 months. And then I think after a while, I totally stopped that. But then all of a sudden I was like, wait, I want to do a podcast now. And then I think it would be an amazing way to start the podcast would be, what are you passionate about? So I was like, let's just do it. So Yvonne, what are you passionate about?
You mean besides everything you just said? Well, let me tell you something that I think is very interesting, and I'd be curious to get like your audience's kind of perspectives on. Maybe they can put it into the comments. Is I think especially within the Western world, we have a unique privilege that we don't necessarily have to have jobs, like jobs that you retire from. I think more and more we have lifestyles that generate income.
Wow.
So for example, I don't ever see myself retiring because I mean, what else am I going to do? I'm literally doing everything I want to do.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not like, oh, I can't wait. I got 2 more years and then my pension.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot that's going to be a trend, at least in the Western world where we are, your passion will generate your income.
Amazingly said.
And I think that's a luxury we have in the Western world that not enough people are taking advantage of. So I admire what you're doing. Do you know what I mean?
I admire what you're doing, if anything.
Well, the beautiful part is you never have to wonder. There's a saying, I might have made it up, but I've just always said this. The only regret in life is regret. The thing that haunts you, when you're going to go to bed and that's when all your like the haunting memories that come into your head, is not what you did and failed at, but what you never tried at. Yeah. So I've had a few things that I failed at, like pretty well. I failed pretty well, but I don't ever think about them anymore. You know what I mean? I'll give you a really good example. And this is something we can all relate with, okay? I'm like 17 years old.
Okay.
And there's that girl that I see at the bus stop every day for months. And then one day I got the courage to go and talk to her and it went terribly. And she was not interested in me in the slightest, even though, it's like I see her every day. And I remember feeling horrible for like maybe 10 minutes. And then the rest of the day was fine because I just couldn't believe I'd actually done it.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So
yeah,
the fact that you did it, you were like, oh my God, I just did it.
I did it. So I don't have to wonder the what if. So the what if is what haunts you.
I think that's what's detrimental to people. I think living that life of regrets, like you always will tell yourself, like you said, while sleeping, well, I could have done this, I could have done that. And like even, like, they say it's like the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, second best time is now. I think that's also what I kind of use with the podcast too. I was like, well, I still use my ums. I still have all these filler words. I'm not ready for this and that and this. And I just told myself, I was like, like a year from now, I just wish if I started today. I wish I did this. I wish I took the step. And I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. And here I am,
You know what's funny about that is I've just recently started a Reddit fight.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So because here's the thing. This is actually something that if you think about it, there's a discrepancy in every aspect of life, but very much in teaching communication between what people teach and what people do. So for example, you talk about filler words. And on Reddit, there was this person, this big long thing. Can we please just eliminate so? I can't stand it when people say so. And then like, I've been a professional speaking coach and I totally agree with you. And then I wrote, but isn't that just how people talk?
Oh, true.
Think about In excess, of course.
100%.
Anything in excess. Being too polished in excess is counterproductive. Because when you see someone who's really, really polished, they look insincere. They look untrustworthy. They're that salesman. Do you know what I mean? And think about this. I ask people this all the time. Who are the best public speakers? Mm-hmm. And I always get the same thing. Like Barack Obama and Steve Jobs. Yeah. But you have never gone home on a Friday night, called all your friends over for beer and pizza to watch a Barack Obama speech. Do you know what I'm saying? I guarantee, hey, you're listening to this, I'm pointing at the camera. You have never watched a full Steve Jobs keynote. You've never done it. You've seen clips of it.
Boring.
Yeah.
I did that.
This is the thing.
Oh my God.
You know who's really good at public speaking? Late night talk show hosts.
Yes.
Podcasters.
Comedians.
Yes. And think about how many filler words they use. Mm-hmm. Listen to Joe Rogan, whether or not, irrespective of what you agree or disagree with what he's saying, just look at the way he is talking. Listen to Shane Gillis. Think about all the filler words. That guy uses "so" all the time. I would say he's a better public speaker than the people on Reddit who are like, I'm a public speaking coach. I did Toastmasters. So, not to take anything away from them, but a lot of people don't realize it because they don't do it. They teach it, but they never do it.
So what would you say is like a way to stop the ums and uhs, but also to like incorporate it? What's a fine line, and how do you really like navigate in that?
Well, you know what? I think if I was going to take your question, it's how do we get that natural style?
Exactly.
We say ums all the time when we're very nervous, and that's usually a sign of nervousness. So the core is the nervousness. Mm-hmm. Now, here's another controversial thing. There is no such thing as not being nervous. Mm. There's no such thing as overcoming nervousness, overcoming fear. There isn't. And this is another thing. And this is why you take all these public speaking classes and you don't really improve.
Exactly.
Because if you think about it, we are social creatures. And standing in front of a group of people is nerve-wracking. It's actually normal. It's the most natural thing in the world. And all the push-ups and jumping around, that's just going to make you sweaty. There's no visualization. You're like, oh, just imagine this or visualize yourself doing this. I'm trying to remember what I'm going to say. I can't do that. You see what I'm saying? It's actually all useless advice. Mm-hmm. And I will answer your question about uhs and ums. The nerves are what's making you use too many filler words. Mm-hmm. You can't overcome. You're always going to be nervous. So what's the answer? The answer is calluses. You ever done drugs? Cocaine, heroin, anything? No? Okay. So here's the thing about doing drugs. I have heard. The thing about doing drugs is you build tolerance to them. Mm-hmm. Right? You build tolerance to like the neuroactivity that happens when you do cocaine and the dopamine spikes. Yeah. You need more and more of it because you build resistance. You can do the same thing to the fight or flight action that happens when you're about to go speak. Oh. So that you still feel it, but it does not affect you by building calluses to it. And how do you build calluses to it? In the same way you build calluses to anything else. You expose yourself to it. So here's how you get over the ums and ahs. Here's how you deal with nerves, not overcome them. You have to practice always with the fear of being watched. Mm. So we talked about stand-up comics. Yeah. You know how stand-up comics polish their 1 hour sets? Like the specials you see are a culmination of usually like a year's worth of work. Yeah. And every single one of them, and I talk about this in my book, they practice by getting up in front of people and stumbling their way through it over and over and over, because it's only with the fear of being watched that you develop the right way to say it. And it's never exactly the same.
There's always a different.
There's always a
when you're
different.
In the thing, there's like, okay, now I want to use this and that. And I think just naturally, the natural way of speaking, like the way you said, is I can practice in the mirror. Okay, Ivan, hey, Ivan, it's blah, blah, blah.
But there's no fear there.
As soon as it comes in, it's, Yvonne, what's up, blah, 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 like, what's happening? Yeah. That's what happens, right?
And what happens is, because you're constantly exposing yourself to that self-conscious fear of people watching you in every practice, when you have to do it for real, you're still feeling it, but just like you build a tolerance to it, and it does not affect your delivery.
100%. And I think touching on the one you said about you don't really overcome the fear.
Dude, I'm nervous every time I speak.
There was this quote that I like almost lived by. It's courage is not the absence of fear. It's action despite fear.
Oh, that's a great one, because that's very true.
Exactly.
I think the exposure to that. I mean, I will give you a really good example. We met at Guelph.
Yes.
Right? The Lang School of Business. Every time I go to present there, there's a little bit of that nervousness. It's always there.
Really?
Of course.
You've been there for like 5
Dude,
years,
I
6
teach
years,
soft
7 years?
skills in business. Everyone thinks I'm going to come in there and talk about like finding your passion and let's hold hands and you know what I mean? Because it's a soft skill.
100%.
And I teach it very differently. As you know, I have a whole other way of doing things. But because I know that's the preset mentality for people in the room, of course I feel the fear. You just never see it.
Yeah.
Because I build that tolerance.
Do you kind of just keep telling yourself, like, do you have like a little thing you tell yourself, or do you kind of just like get at it and it's like just hope for the best and like kind of continue on like muscle memory? Because you built that callus over time.
Well, I've built that calluses, and as a result of that, I'm very good with the free flow of it.
Yeah.
I've become very good with uncertainty. Wow. But I'll give you a little tactic. Okay, I want to give you a little secret of mine that not enough people use. If you really want to have an impact on a group of people, one of the ways you can do it without you having to do anything, you can be shy. You can be super nervous. You can be an introvert, and this will still work. There is nothing that you can do that will impact a group of people and really make them think more than letting them talk to each other.
Interesting.
People think, here's the thing, people think, I got to be up there, I got to have lots of energy, and there's a room for that. But think about this. What is the loudest part? Think back to when you were in university. Okay. The loudest part of any class. It's right before or right after the class. When you're allowed to talk to each other. In the middle of it, you're like, even if it's interesting, you're like, I can't keep my eyes open. I can't keep my eyes open. The second you're allowed to talk to anyone you want, is the second you wake up. Which is why in all of my sessions, within the first 2 or 3 minutes, I get people doing stuff. I don't know if you remember, and people don't ever notice.
As well too.
It's like within seconds, it's like, okay, everyone, we're doing this. And you're like, what, we're doing stuff already? And right away, that has an impact. It energizes and it impacts people.
So would you say when presenting, the key to make the audience hooked the entire time and actually paying attention would be to make sure it's interactive? Not only with each, to the speaker, to the audience, but in the audience itself.
100%. Because think about this. How old were you in 1992? Were you born?
No, I was not born. Okay. -8.
-8. You were -8 years old. Okay? 1992 was when PowerPoint came out.
Oh, wow.
And if you think about it, we have not changed how we present since then. And before then. Think about it. Do you think nothing's changed except the quality of the pictures? We still have one picture, bullet, bullet, bullet.
Yeah.
And you're like, behold, my presentation, right? And then we rely on it. We kind of like, so here's what's on we talk about what's on a slide. Ask yourself if that's what you want. How often have you read a slide deck in a presentation? The answer is never. Because you never, right?
You look at it, okay, yeah.
And here's the other thing. COVID didn't teach us that it's harder to keep people engaged virtually. COVID taught us that virtually I don't have to be polite. And why the hell am I have to give my time at this exact time just to sit and listen? Can't I sit and listen anytime? The answer is yes.
Yeah.
So the future that I'm trying to create, because we're unfortunately going back to this like this lecture style. Nobody wants lectures. Nobody wants lectures.
No one does.
So why are we still lecturing? I think every audience, no matter how formal and informal, wants to think and interact. So the future of speaking, or if you want to make an impact in speaking, is creating interaction.
100%.
Let me give you one example before you ask your next question, because there might be introverts listening to this.
100%.
There might be a bunch of people who just look at their phone, don't say hello and good morning to people. If someone says, how are you? You panic, or you're like, I don't know what to say in these situations. I'm talking to you nerds. As a former nerd myself, I'm still a bit of a nerd. I play video games, dude. And I recently did a little thing on Instagram about this. If you're really shy, you're not good at presenting, English is not your first language. That's a big one for people. But you have to do a presentation. Here's what you do. I want to give you this. This is exactly what you do. Ask a question. Like, I want you to decide between these two options. Can you find me an example of this? Start your presentation off like that. Hello, everyone. My name's Yvonne. I'd like you to rank these 3 in order of importance. I will give you 20 seconds. A, B, C. Go. I'd like you to pick between these two options with someone sitting next to you. I'll give you 20 seconds. Go. That room will get so loud so quickly. It'll make you look super dynamic. It takes the focus off of you. And it puts on you start speaking, but then all of a sudden the focus is off of you so you can relax. The first few seconds are the hardest part for everyone. Everyone says, it's just the first part. After I get into it, it's fine. Well, good. Now the focus is off of you. Everyone gets awake. Then you get their attention back and they're all wondering why, which means now you have their awake and engaged attention.
Wow.
You're welcome. That's for free.
No, I think that's an amazing way to put it. But what happens if it's, say at work and I'm giving a presentation to the managers and things like that? Those ones are usually boring. You're just talking about something absolutely. And that. Is that something we just have to bite the bullet on and saying, okay, well, it is what it is and kind of just get it done with because it's work? Or what would you say if you were in a corporate environment?
It's an interesting question, right? Because if I get any form of resistance, it's usually along these lines. Yeah. These ideas are great, but they won't work in my work. I don't think that's not appropriate for a meeting. And then I ask people, what's the parts you hate about meetings? And it's you just sit there. I have no idea why they're talking about this information. There's no reason for me to be there. So do you see that cognitive dissonance?
Yeah.
And it's hard to get people over it. But I will tell you this. I work with two major banks, one of the top five, two of the top 5 big banks in Canada. And I also work with several large organizations that you will know by name, international, very well-renowned organizations. And all of them are looking to make their meetings and their conferences and their time together more interactive and more engaging. So there's an opportunity for those willing to take that chance. The second thing is that it's actually very appropriate. Let's think of a couple of scenarios. Let's do scenario 1. It's a 10-minute update. I have to tell you what's going on I'm in sales. I have to tell you what's going on in the region, right? Mm-hmm. And I have these 4 different places that I'm working at, right? I could say, okay, so here's what's going on with it. Or I could start off the session, 10 seconds. Which do you think is the highest growing in my 3 units? Oh. Just out of curiosity. Anything? Just actually maybe turn around, discuss it with the person next to you, just 10 seconds. They start saying, okay, well, actually, it's this one. And then you get into your traditional. But you started off with engagement. And that's completely appropriate.
That's the hook almost.
Yes.
So when we're making short videos, the hook, retain, reward, you hook them on, you retain them, and the reward is what it is at the end of it.
I love that. Hook,
hook, retain, reward,
And it's perfectly appropriate. You know what I mean? If you say, and I've been in meetings where it's hey, before I begin, I want to ask you, what do you think is the hardest part of getting a customer to commit more funds? Let's say we're talking about wealth management. Mm-hmm. Any ideas? You can say, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's completely appropriate versus saying, here's the 3, starting off with what the information is. Because the second you just tell me what's on the slide deck, what are you going to think?
Already done. It's whatever.
Yeah. It is what if it's important, I'll get the slide deck later.
Yeah.
And then do you actually ever read the slide deck?
I'll take a picture of it too. And it gets lost in the ether.
Yeah. A year from now, you're I don't care about this.
Yeah, literally.
Delete it. Yeah.
100%. So what about, now it's public speaking, but I think you also do you speak a lot about just networking with people all together. If I was to approach someone, how would you say that? Just a person on the streets, so maybe a hiring manager, really vast, but how would you do it and what tips would be for that?
So there's a mentality shift that I think we need to have with the concept of the elevator pitch. Because that's essentially what you're asking.
Do you love it or do you hate it?
It's just not realistic. Mm-hmm. Everyone talks about the elevator pitch, and you say, "Give me an example," and people always give you these big, long, kind of esoteric examples. And and all the examples you've practiced in your career prep classes, you're I'll never actually do this in the real world because it'd be weird. Mm-hmm. Listen, if you got stuck with someone that you don't know and they spent 30 seconds trying to get you to commit to a meeting, you would do anything you could to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
Because the fundamental mind shift I think we need to have is, if you think of an elevator pitch as how much can I say in the shortest amount of time? Mm-hmm. I think that's the wrong way to look at it. I think the right way to look at it is as an appetizer pitch. When you go out to eat, an appetizer, if the appetizers on the menu are interesting, you get excited about the rest, don't you? You're ooh, let's try this chickpea crisp. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You get excited. It's a little taste of what's to come. I think a really good way, if you're thinking from the world of networking, of instead of an elevator pitch where you try and say as much as possible, how little can I say to make you curious?
Okay. Would you then speak about yourself, speak about the weather? What would you say at that time?
So that's the appetizer comes after you've breaking the ice.
Okay. So break the ice, then do that.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
Because here's the thing: if you break the ice effectively, there's no time limits. We're having a social conversation.
Yeah.
Right. And if it's especially within a networking or even an interview environment, the person will eventually go, well, anyway, let's get into it.
Yeah.
Right. You know what I mean? It'll
100%.
flow.
It flows into itself.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So here's the number one thing about breaking the ice. Okay. If you want to break the ice with someone, most of the time you hear, oh, ask questions to show interest in this other person, right? But if I don't know you and you start asking me a bunch of questions about myself, I don't want to answer you.
It's like, who are you?
Yeah,
I don't know you.
I don't know you.
Yeah,
Even if it's in like a networking situation, there's a guard is up. Just ask yourself how much you like when an Uber driver starts asking you questions about what you're doing that day, where you're going, what's your background. You're like, I don't know you, dude.
Yeah.
So that's not it. There's two things that I think you need if you really want to be good at like connecting with people. Number one, before you ask any questions, reveal something about yourself. And don't make it super deep. I like how many, here's 5 questions that you can ask anyone to have a deep conversation. It's like, what do you want in the next 5 years? If I just met someone and they asked me that, I would be like, go fuck yourself. So what brings you up in the morning? I'm like, I don't know, dude. I'm just here.
I'm groggy usually.
These questions don't make any sense.
Yeah.
Because they're all questions. Instead, what you do is think of something super low stakes. Okay? Super low stakes. And you bring that up. So here's what I always say. When someone says, hey, how are you? Instead of just saying, I'm fine, how are you? Reveal a little something that you're going to do that day or the next day. So like ask me, how are you doing?
Yeah, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm actually going to go do a 10K walk tonight.
10K?
Yeah.
In this weather?
Well, the rain is making me think less of it, but it's kind of a challenge I've given myself. Now, right away, we could get into a whole conversation.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be interesting. Let's do a few more. Ask Yvonne, how are you?
Yvonne, what are you doing?
Good. Doing laundry tonight, so I'm super excited about that.
Laundry night's always the best nights.
Well, and right away, we could get into an inside joke about laundry, how I hate, like, I will do laundry, but I won't fold. Like, it's just a thing of mine. I just don't like folding. You know what I mean? When I'm ultra wealthy,
I'm just going to have a folder.
I'm going to have a dry cleaner. I'm not just dry clean. I'm going to dry clean my socks. I'm going to dry clean up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But look, again, now we have a little fun thing.
Yeah.
So the secret is before you ask any questions. Like if I was going to say, a lot of people say, so what part of town do you live in? Where are you from? Which is actually a very dangerous question. Very dangerous that I'm trying to get people to stop asking.
The where are you from?
The where are you from? But let's say you say, like if I was going to say, hey, what part of town do you live in? Usually people are like,
yeah.
But if I say, hey, I live in the annex, how about you? Then it's always, and I
Usually
do this.
when you reveal something of yourself.
It's volunteered.
Exactly. I think when people, I love the way you said that because now, a few things are clicking. Because when I start posting on social media, people naturally like talking to me more because now that you said it, they know me. They know a little bit about me.
So the trust is there.
The trust is there. So then when I speak to people, I kind of go like, same thing what you said. I'm from this part. I was like, oh, I hate this thing. Oh my God, it's always a pain in the ass.
Right away,
and
opinions.
Like, yes. And I think when you go to them and you approach people, this is always like when I was younger, just like a human and not like a sale or like a closing. It's like, let's just have a conversation. I want you to be my friend. I'm just genuinely interested. I don't want to be in this elevator as long as you want to be, but let's make the most out of this little time that we have. And I think when you speak about yourself and then you get them into it, they know something about you, they want to share, and it's this beautiful dance that happens, right? And that's the beauty of speaking itself, and I love about communication. It's one of my passions. It's talking to people is amazing. Everyone has a story. Everyone has something they're passionate about, what they like to share, blah, 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 blah. And knowing that is just cool. Meeting cool people is fun. And a lot of people don't talk about that, right? It's just, and you never know who's who. And even with introverts, the introverts are some of the best and coolest people you'll ever meet, because when that shell comes off, they just explode. Everything exposes, and they're like, oh, I like this, I like that. Cool. I like that too. I'm trying to get into this. And that's such a beautiful thing. And that's why people don't understand that public speaking is not only for a presenter. Communication isn't only for networking. It's for life. When you can communicate well in life, your entire world just becomes so much better. If you can articulate your thoughts in the way it's supposed to be, you're then more confident in yourself. And while speaking, people like speaking to you. People understand you that much more, right? So I think that's the beauty of like just speaking itself, and why I like was so drawn to you, because everything you said that day, and this is 5 years ago, everything you said 5 years ago, wow. I still remember.
When I was 20. I'm just kidding.
You don't look a day over 18. What are you talking about, Yvonne?
Thank you very much. As I get my book out.
But yeah, I think that's the beauty of, and then you like captivating and everything. It's just the whole like ensemble is just such a beautiful thing. And definitely asking questions is something that I think people should be recommending.
Revealing before you ask questions is the secret, and make it as mundane as possible. If someone says, how you doing? You say, I'm looking forward to taking my dog out tonight. You don't think they're going to ask you about your dog?
Yeah. It's like, oh, what dog do you have?
Opinions about it. We're going out for drinks with my friends tonight. Oh, where are you going? And then these little subtleties are the secret. And I'll tell you one cool story, okay? Bill Clinton.
Oh.
I had a friend of mine, and this is like maybe 20 years ago, met Bill Clinton. And I remember at the time, he was like, it was a surreal experience. He was in the States, and he basically paid a bunch of money to be at this like super high-end meeting, and he was the speaker. And then afterward, he went around all the tables, and, you know, over desserts, essentially, he went and he just pretty much talked to everyone there. That's part of the reason you're paying, it was, you know. And I was so fascinated by this story that I just kept drilling my friend about it. And I said, you know, so what did he do? Like, what did he do? And he says, Bill Clinton makes you feel like you met him before and you forgot.
Wow.
Because he was like, I don't know what happened. He was like, it was like surreal. And I was like, well, what? And I'm like digging in because this is my pat. I'm like, what did he do? And what I managed to piece together from this conversation is he went up and he was like, hey, Mr. Clinton, it's nice to meet you. And Bill Clinton didn't say, it's nice to meet you too. How are you? He didn't say that. He's like, let's just suppose my friend's name is John. He's like, hey, Clinton, it's nice to meet you. I'm John. John, did you try the steak?
Wow.
And he's like, what? He's like, did you try this steak? It's fantastic. He's like, oh, actually, I had the fish. Oh, you see. And then they got into this little like 20, 30-second conversation about how good dinner was and stuff like that. And then another 30 seconds later, they just kept, they kind of evolved. And, you know, he's like, it's interesting. Oh, I don't go out to eat very much. Oh, why are you here? And they got into this kind of like very deep conversation, professionally deep, within a minute. And then, you know, his handler's like, no, I'm sorry, he has to go. But it felt like we were like in the middle of a conversation. Wow. And so what did he do? Instead of just saying, I'm fine, how are you? He revealed before he jumped into anything else.
It kind of just knocks everyone off. Like, people don't expect it. Yeah. So it's like, wait, I'm not talking to the president. I'm talking to a friend. I'm talking to someone I know. And that immediately just like...
And it's a topic of conversation that gives you somewhere to go. Because I imagine he's had a lot of, hi, how are you? I'm good, how are you? Good.
And
then you have nothing else to say, right? So
Anyways,
he always gives you... Exactly. Yeah. So that was like, that gave confirmation to this strategy. 100%. And by the way, I invite everyone listening, hey, you, stop looking at the other screen. Listen to us. The next time someone says, hey, how are you? Try just saying, good, I was listening to a super interesting podcast. How are you? Just say that and watch what happens, because they're going to ask you about the podcast and you see where it goes. That's another tactic, a challenge for all you listeners.
I think there's also like, it's like, I like to do like side missions. It's like, okay.
A side mission.
It's like, you know what? Like, let me try doing this. It's like, I'm going to implement this one thing. Like, even like, there was this really popular thing that was going on. It's like a 100-day challenge of rejection. Like, your whole task is to
I think they call rejected. That Tinder. Sorry.
This is in real life, sorry, but
dating is broken.
Hey, speaking of dating, how do I build? You have to say. How does one build speaking riz, also known as charisma?
How does one build what?
Speaking riz.
Oh, riz, like a riz. Yeah, for charisma. Sure, dude.
Yeah.
Well, here's it goes actually back to what we were saying. So let me answer this question in a very roundabout way. Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Beautiful book.
Yeah. You know, I love that book. I was a Dale Carnegie trainer for years.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things that he kind of really alludes to is getting the other person to do most of the talking. One of the ways that you can be really charming is by getting people to do most of the talking. But how do you do that? Dale Carnegie never answers that. He just gives you like, that was actually one of my frustrations with Dale Carnegie in general. Great ideas, no tactics. So let the other person do the majority of the talking is one of his, and then he gives you a bunch of examples. It's like, just really try and get them to open up. And you're like,
how?
Okay, how? This little reveal tactic is how you do it. Because sometimes I will do this and the other person will go off for like 15 minutes, and I'm just like, yeah.
Wow. You're such a great listener.
Like, well, they don't even think they don't even think about it that way. They're just like, oh my gosh, Yvonne, I'm so sorry. I've been talking for like so long. I'm like, no, this is really interesting. Really great interviewers do this. They give someone something to talk about, and then they go off because what's everyone's favorite topic?
Themselves.
Right?
Hear that, ladies? He's a ladies' man. He knows his way around.
But I will pepper this in. 80%, you got to let the other person talk. Periodically, throw out little interesting things to complement what they're saying. Not one-upping, which is what typically most people do. So if I say, oh man, I had this amazing time in Mexico. Oh man, I had such a good time in Mexico too. We always make it about ourselves and trying that one-upsmanship. The best kind of additions to any conversation are things that complement what they're saying and makes the other person want to talk more.
Yeah.
So someone says like, let's suppose someone says like, oh, I just came back from Playa del Carmen. Instead of saying my Playa del Carmen experience, like, oh, I love Playa del Carmen. Did you ever go here? Yeah. Or if you didn't, what was your favorite restaurant? And then they talk more.
And I think even with people who are labeled as rude, disrespectful, a lot of times I think it's because that little back and forth, they start bickering, like, oh, they're trying to one up, and everyone's like that. I think it takes a little bit of humility to understand it's like, I want to let the person speak, and so we both can enjoy this. And I think what I used to do when I was younger is like let them speak. It was like, I don't know, when I was young, I used to ask a lot of questions, so that naturally came, and then I realized it was actually a good thing. So then a lot of people would be like, oh, he's such a dickhead. How do you have a conversation with him? Not me, but other people. I'm like, bro, like, I really liked it. Like, it was so cool. He told me about this. He told me about that. He's like, he liked you? He likes no one. She talked to you? She's a bitch. Like, she doesn't want to do this, that, and the other. I was like, yo, we had a great conversation. We all have defense
mechanisms.
Exactly. And I think it's like it's like you have to put in your mind, okay, he's not better than me. He's not worse than me. Let me just get to know him. It takes a little bit of humility. And I think that's what people have to understand while getting into that little environment.
Sure. And I will also add one more thing, that this is a little counterintuitive. The samurai always says that the direct approach is the best. I humbly disagree. When discussing Ruiz, the direct approach makes, like, here's what I mean by direct approach. If you come off way too interested, way too friendly, and way too happy, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
The indirect approach is usually the best approach. So in a context of not just like, let's say, in any form of interpersonal communication, if I meet you for the first time and I'm way too happy to meet you, it actually makes you put your barriers up.
Yeah.
Right? If I come up to you and I'm doing an approach, let's say with whether it's networking or whether it's like, oh, I see a pretty girl, and I do a direct, hi, how are you? I really want to talk to you. What's your name? That person is going to be like, oh.
Yeah. Get out of here. I'm not interested.
So part of the charm, part of charisma is being indirect in your approach. So instead of going like this, I always say, instead of like coming in at, what is this? What was the straight, like 180 degrees? Yeah. Come in at like 160.
Yeah. To get them like in the right mood.
And it's the same thing I do for networking. When I, for example, when I see like someone standing by themselves, I don't beeline it to them and be like, hi, how are you? You're standing alone. This in networking, that might work. But usually what I walk by and I ask them an indirect question. I'm like, by the way, do you know where the buffet is? Or like, do you know where the bathroom is? I always ask like, by the way, my name's Yvonne. So sorry, nice to meet you. And then we'll get into a conversation. They're like, how are you? And then I'll throw in my little reveal.
Yeah.
And then we'll get into a whole other gig. And then the beautiful part of this is, because I asked a question, this is my thing. I usually say, where's the bathroom? Where's the buffet? When the conversation starts to die, I'm like, well, anyway, listen, I'm going to go head over to that buffet now. Thanks for letting me know. It gets you an exit.
Wow. It's kind of like a game almost. When you like talk to people, it's like you can have like kind of play around with what you say. We all hate
getting stuck in conversations. And you can see, like, you've been in a conversation, right, where you want to get out of it, they want to get out of it, but neither of you can figure out the way to get out of it. The secret is giving an exit before you enter.
So it's like almost like a follow-up plan.
Yeah. I always have an exit right before. I'm just on my way blank.
Yeah, I think even as well speaking to people, it's like I almost start off with like, hey, by the way, I got like a meeting like 10 minutes, but like, what's up? How's it going? It's like, oh, that meeting's coming. Oh,
let me give you two drastically different examples. Okay, one from Tim Ferriss.
Okay,
Tim Ferriss is the modern guru of like the hacking your life.
Yep.
Back in the 90s, he did it.
Oh wow.
And one of his little things was he would always pick up the phone And so it says, hey, do you have a minute? He's like, actually, I got about 1 minute. I'm just about to walk into a meeting. I'm just about to do this. Oh, I'll call you later. No. Let's just do it now. To hyper focus people. And that gives you like this like indirect way, and it gives you an exit before you enter.
Wow.
Mystery, as many of any of you back in the 90s and the early 2000s was a pickup artist, right? From Toronto, by the way.
Oh, no way.
Useless fact. Yeah. Was like, I guess like the first pickup artist guru.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Back, or one of these guys. But one of the, irrespective of what you think about pickup artistry and stuff like that, one of the things he always talked about is you can't be super direct. You have to be indirect. So a lot of the things he taught men would be like asking, like giving them an exit. Hey, I'm just leaving with a few friends of mine, but I wanted to quickly say blank. Hey, I'm just on my way here, but I wanted to quickly ask blank. You give yourself an exit before you enter any conversation. Wow. And that's one of the secrets of being charismatic.
Wow. That was really well said. Damn.
Why? Thank you.
Oh my God.
Who would have thought?
Also, so going through your Instagram and like your philosophy of I'm on a personal mission to stop boring.
Yes.
I love that. Thank you. Because not enough people talk about it, right? People just like, I remember I was with my girlfriend. She was like, we're just walking.
You were boring her to death. And you're like, why are you so boring? And then we broke up and now I'm here. No.
No, we're literally in downtown, right?
Yeah.
I was like, and she's always like telling like, oh, like we're just walking slightly quietly. I was like, you want to see something? And then there was like a homeless guy who was just walking. And I just started the conversation and I was just talking shit. And then we just random conversation. I was like, oh. And he was like cussing about something, maybe about like say like the government. I was like, oh, could you believe it? And then he starts his ramble, and I'm like, oh my God. And then she knows I'm just playing around, so we start making like, we start poking questions, a little rude, but it was fun. And this little 1 kilometer conversation that we had, 1 kilometer conversation with the homeless guy, whatever, it was fun. It would have been so boring. Yeah, I would have enjoyed my time with you, Crate. I love you, okay? But it was so much fun. I genuinely enjoyed it. And then that's what I like to do. It's like if I'm doing something small, it's like, okay, I'm waiting at Staples. There's a guy outside. It's like start poking something. Start like if you watched Beverly Hills Cop.
Of course.
And then you know how he always comes in.
The original back in the 80s. Have you watched Beverly Hills Cop?
All 4.
Really?
Yeah. Just had a marathon the other day, so it's like fresh in the head. But you know when he comes in and Eddie Murphy, he's like he has a persona. He likes to do all these things.
Yeah.
I tell my friends like sometimes I'm not always Nouman Pasha. Sometimes I'm someone else. Sometimes I'm like, I'll even go because I kind of look a little Spanish. I'll be like, oh, my name is Jesus, blah, blah, blah. But I don't have the accent because we moved there, whatever. And I just fabricate an entire story, right? On spot. Just because I don't want it to be boring. Now the guy in front of me thinks it's so cool. He's talking to this guy, whatever. I'm enjoying my time. It's a little cynical, but it's like, hey, blah, blah, blah. This is where I'm from. This is what I'm doing. And it's like, it's something so, like, it's kind of big, but like, it's so much fun. Right? Because you kind of just experiment with it, and you do these things day to day. Every single day, we have interactions, we have things that we do that we don't like. Learn to find enjoyment in that. You can't just chase happiness ever going like, oh my God, I have to do this to be happy. I have to do that. I was like, I'm going to be happy doing this. I'm going to go here to here, and I'm going to do something, and I'm going to make a laugh, I'm going to make a joke, I'm going to make a friend. That's the goal for the day. Let's do it. Right? And I think it's there's beauty in there, right? It's like, it's fun. It's kind of a little weird, but it's fun for me. And that's why I kind of like the whole going back to the falling in love with communication. Right back with what you said, it was like, this guy made one of the most boring presentations I've ever watched. I thought I would be watching into so much fun. Like he talked about the angles of the way I should look, the way I should talk into a camera, this, that. He engineered this entire play. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. I'm following this guy. And for 5 years, I'd comment here and there. I'd water the relationship 100%. And then when I asked you, I was like, hey, like, I'd love for you to be on the podcast. And you're like, oh my God, yes. My heart was like, yay, yes.
Well, I'm a big believer in, you have to say yes to everything because you never know where yes will lead.
100%.
You know where no will lead. No will lead to nothing.
Yeah.
There was a great. Let's play a little game. Okay. Now, this is like an improv game that I saw someone say. Okay. So the game is just called Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions and you just have to answer yes. Okay.
Okay.
You want to hear a story?
Yes.
Do you want to hear a story about a dragon?
Yes.
Does the dragon breathe fire?
Yes.
Is the dragon the bad guy?
Yes.
Are they going to fight a brave knight?
Yes.
Is the brave knight going to win?
Yes.
Is the brave knight going to save the day?
Yes.
Will everyone live happily ever after?
Yes.
Okay. Let's play the same game, okay? But this time you say no.
Okay.
Ready? You want to hear a story?
No. What?
And that's it. Then there you go. So, and there's There's a couple of different ways to think about it. One, in entertainment, they say the people you see on the way going up are the same people you see on the way going down. Mm-hmm. So you got to be open and nice to everyone.
Everybody, yeah.
The way I like to think about it is a high tide raises all ships. So the more I can help people around me,
oh wow, yeah,
right, the more it can help me. Mm-hmm. So and it's never from a selfish point of view. I'm a big believer in saying yes, because when I was starting out, I still remember there was this person who was an established communications coach, and they were doing workshops, and I was starting out, and unfortunately within this kind of like, what's a good way to say it, self-help industry, mm-hmm. everyone is very
closed off. Almost.
Closed off.
Gatekeeping.
They gatekeep because why would I tell anyone about my competitors?
Yeah.
I have a WhatsApp group with my competitors.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because sometimes I can't do a gig and I say, hey, is anyone available for this? Or sometimes they want something that I can't do. Hey, can one of you do? I'm a big believer in saying yes to everything, because you never know where it's going to lead, right? So when I was starting out, this person, and I eventually did get them on phone, and they were super rude to me. And they're like, it's only because we had a mutual client, and they were trying to make, like, mm-hmm, the client mm-hmm. asked. And she's like, well, I don't know what to tell you. I can't help you. I don't know you're just going to have to work hard. I don't know. And they were very standoffish. And after a while, I was like, well, thank you for your time. Goodbye. That was such a negative experience for me that mm-hmm. when anyone asks me anything, when people reach out, you know, I have lots of old students. Like say, hey, Vaughn, could you help me with this? Could you do this? Could you come and speak at this? Before this, I had a student, and she lives in Nigeria. Oh, and wow. She's trying to build her kind of like brand to be a motivational speaker. And she's like, could you give me like Friday at like 8:30 p.m. Can you please like be on a virtual like a Q&A with me? Mm-hmm. I said, of course, yes. I say yes to everything. Wow. Because if I can help her become a success, maybe in 10 years, it helps me.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's something I paid forward, I guess.
Yeah. What would you say is, because you just talked about building a brand, what would you say your tips and your advice on building a brand would be? Especially now, because you said about social media, everyone wants to make their passions into like almost like an income, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. How would you build that online presence? Or just presence in general?
Well, let me preface it by saying I think there's a lot of people who have done it better than I have.
Okay.
So I'm by no means an expert mm-hmm. in building a brand. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? Things that have helped me that I can comment on is, number one, finding a unique point of view mm-hmm. or a unique niche, I think very much helps. So, for example, there's a lot of people who are motivational speakers. You know what I'm saying? What is your unique point of view on motivational speaking and I'm not a motivational speaker. I'm very much not. I'm very much like practical, technical skills, not feel good about yourself. Right? Mm-hmm. I'm more like, you should suck, and here's why. You're boring, and you suck, and here's why. No.
Be better.
Be better. Be better. No, but let's just, within the world of motivational speaking, you got to find a niche. For example, I helped someone, and she was a project manager. And I was like, do you think you could bring project management to self-help? And she was like, I don't know. And we looked, and no one was talking about, well, she's like, yeah, I think I could. She was like, project management is about having goalposts and reevaluating and having milestones. And I think that would be really cool. I'm like, that's your niche. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's, this is a bit of a trope, but like, there's more than enough basketball coaches for some reason that are motivational. I apply, the things we learn in basketball to the things we do
in life. Yeah.
So that's number one, is finding a niche. And then number two is, this is, I think, more important. I think people front load having a brand and a niche and all that kind of stuff. I found that my brand and my niche developed through action, through doing. Oh. So
like you became your niche.
Yes.
Yeah.
So for example, you doing your podcast, mm-hmm. so many people doing podcasts, mm-hmm. how do you break through the mold? Well, I guarantee that your podcast is changing as it's going, 100%. Right? Both by format, the way you communicate, the type of guests you have. If you started a niche at the beginning and tried to fit everything to the niche, it would prevent you from growing and learning.
Okay.
So if I was going to give anyone
advice, because then you almost like closed off.
Yeah.
It's beginning almost like.
So if someone wants to be, let's say, a speaker, and they want to be a motivational speaker, I would say go and find opportunities to speak for free. Okay. Join a Toastmaster club. Mm-hmm. Ask everyone in that Toastmaster club, hey, can I come and speak for 10 minutes at your company once you've built a rapport with them?
Oh, wow.
I'll do it for free. A little quick lunch and learn. Want to just get better at my motivational speaking. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I did that. I worked for free for many years.
Wow.
Until I found that my unique niche was all about interaction. I was best when it was interaction.
Would you say Toastmasters was beneficial for you?
Yes, Toastmasters is great, but it's a little boring, a little nerdy. And it's very, Dale Carnegie is the same way. It's very dogmatic in its approach. So in Toastmasters, you do it this way. This is good speaking. You know, your hands go like this. You start every presentation like this, and it's very dogmatic. Dale Carnegie is the same way. If you do Dale Carnegie training, they're very dogmatic. This is the way you do things. So it's good for a foundation. But then I think people need to grow out of it.
100%.
Because Toastmasters, if you've ever been to Toastmasters, I'll give you an example. Every speech, and I'm a distinguished Toastmaster. I did the whole Toastmaster system. I was the president of a Toastmaster club.
Oh, wow.
I was part of the President's Club, which was like for high-performing Toastmaster clubs.
And those who don't know, just what is Toastmasters?
Toastmasters is a peer-to-peer public speaking club.
Okay.
So, for example, there's no teacher, anything. Basically, you show up to the club and you pay like whatever, it's $100 or whatever, and you get a little booklet. And that booklet has a series of speaking challenges in it, right? So and once you complete those speaking challenges, your little booklet, you get a CC, which is a competent communicator designation. I think it's changed in the years since I've been in Toastmasters. And the idea is you get up, you speak, you get some feedback, and that's it. Then you get up and speak again, you get some feedback, and that's it. And that you learn by doing, which is awesome. But they have a very dogmatic way of doing things. Every Toastmaster speech starts with fellow Toastmasters welcome guest, for example. That's every Toastmasters speech is that way. And they kind of have their little rules, and they're very much about filler words. They literally have a role called like the counter where they'll say, use 5 times. Wow. Use like 3 times. Use so 2 times. Wow. So they're very hyper-vigilant.
Yeah.
I'm so glad I went to it, and I learned so much. But I think that they were dogmatic, and there was a better way of doing things.
So let it start your journey, but don't let it finish there.
Love it. Thank you for saying that much more succinctly. You should be a public speaking coach.
No, definitely.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah. Toastmasters is great. Toastmasters is great. I'm not trying to like put shade on them at all. I'm just saying that that's one path to success.
Yep.
I think that you should take all the paths.
You never know where you're going to get, right?
If you only learn communication from a comedian, that's one path.
Yeah.
If you learn from Toastmasters, that's another path. If you learn from improv, that's another path. If you did sales, that's another path. The true master is a master of all paths.
Yeah. Wow. No, because now
I did it all. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've done sales before, and I'm going back into it again.
Yeah.
And I've done like the corporate side. I've done like this, and then it's like I use everything when I speak, right? And different people, everyone's different too, right? Sometimes you might go to like a corporate guy, but he's like wants to have a laugh. So then that side comes on. You want to be a little funny. But then something else comes on. You want to be this. And then being able to like have those like, okay, these avenues is very important. One more thing with the speaking.
Yeah.
I tend to do this a lot, and it's terrible. But I speak very fast, and I tend to mumble the words, right? And then so when I go online, I'll see like, use the pauses, blah, blah, blah. Is that good?
So sorry, yeah. I think it should be good. It has been on the entire time.
Oh, no way.
But I think that God, I hope it was recording. We'll find out. Doesn't matter.
I got the audio on this to send it to you if anything.
Thank you.
Figure it out. Don't worry.
Appreciate you.
Yeah. But back to it's the use of my speech is very fast, and then I mumble some of the words. Sometimes people say use the pauses. What would you say for someone like me who speaks really fast, mumbles over the words, and still trying to learn everything?
Yeah, the whole concept of pausing is valuable, and if you ask any speakers and they say, pausing is super important. But I think that's where the conversation, you got to pause. You're like, yeah, like no shit. How? When? So what is the secret to pausing, and what is the secret to slowing down? Because it's not trying to slow down. Because if you've done it, here's what happens. The first few seconds, you're being very conscious of being slow. And then very quickly you forget about it and you go back into your normal speaking pattern.
That's literally what happens.
That's literally what happens to everyone, because you can't consciously change the way you speak as you're speaking. Pausing is important, but when do you pause and how do you add pauses? So here's an exercise that I do. Okay? The bigger your hands, the more you will pause. I'm serious. If you practice and you go like, hello, ladies and gentlemen, this will be so distracting to you because you can't think and physically move at the same time. Speak and think, this will distract you. It actually forces you to slow down.
So moving your hands up and down.
Like big, not just up, but like you're Moses on the mountain speaking with the commandments, speaking the truth to the people.
Okay.
And I say like, be as big as you can.
Okay.
Because then when you do it for real, you're not actually going to be that big. But by practicing that way,
so what
you're
is it?
finding breaks. So let me give you an example.
Yeah.
And this is going to be really great audio. Because we're on a podcast.
Yeah.
Not every joke lands. Okay, moving on.
Lesson learned.
That's what I said. So, for example, I'm going to say, today, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to talk to you about some of the benefits of sleep. Okay. Oh my gosh, I say that so fast. So what I would do to practice is I would like hyper exaggerate. Today, ladies and gentlemen, I am going to talk to you about sleep.
Okay.
Like I would do these big exaggerated hand gestures because it's forcing me to break up what I'm saying.
Oh.
Now, if I keep practicing like that,
okay,
I'm going to build that flow. So then when I have to do it for real, it's going to be small, but I'll be like, hello, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah.
Today, and that's what's actually going to break, because that's how you've been practicing. It's like you use the hands, but then after a while, you don't need them. In the same way, and this is going to sound hilarious, that one of the tried and true techniques of training any dog is you give them food, and when you give them food, you also use a clicker, right?
Yeah.
Then you remove the food, but you keep using the clicker.
And then they salivate.
Then you remove the clicker, and they just respond to you've just created a behavior. You kind of are doing that to yourself when you do big hands.
Wow.
You're creating a behavior, and that's forcing you to pause in different places. Then you take it away, but those pauses are still there.
That's amazing. Okay, I want to end off on that note, but
now have we been talking? Has it been that long already?
It almost been 5.
Okay, we got to do some rapid fire Q&A.
No, I think okay, I'll give you 4. Okay. Favorite book?
In general?
Just in general, self-help book.
Self-help book?
Yes.
Probably Brain Rules by John Medina.
Okay.
Fantastic book.
Yeah. What's it about?
How the brain has evolved to process information.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I talk about that book all the time. It changed. When he wrote that book, I was like, I'm not the only one. And he's a neuroscientist that talked about the neuroscience from the brain. And here's how you need to present based on how the brain works.
Perfect.
It's been around forever. It's been like a long time.
I'll definitely look into it. Biggest motivation?
Beyond money.
You can use that. Hey.
That's what everyone always says.
Yeah.
No, dude, I want to change the world. Mm-hmm. Think about how many game-changing ideas, how many Einsteins we have lost to boredom. We could be flying around Saturn if the smartest people in the world were also the most interesting to listen to.
That's true. Wow. Yeah. No one does the work. Wow. Really well said.
The smartest people are the people you listen to the least sometimes. Yeah. And then this Yahoo in his car telling you the earth is flat. And you're like, yeah, that's right. He said it
because
they're so charismatic. Yeah.
It's like he believes
so that's what motivates me. I want to end boring. I want people who are really, really doing crazy stuff to also be the most interesting people to speak and listen to.
Wow. Best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
It's what you learn after you know it all that counts.
Wow.
Every year, I'm like, man, I'm getting really good at this. I'll be honest with you. Last year, I didn't know any. I was terrible last year. And then a year goes by, I was like, no, now I'm really getting this. Last year, I was terrible. I'm always thinking that. And I try and think about that in the moment.
Well, yes. Yeah. I think what I do a lot, even with the gym and stuff like that, is that a year ago, or actually, no, not gym, but mentality, right? And maturity. I'll be like, oh my God, a year ago, I was a baby. Oh, what the heck? I didn't even like that. When I look back at it, I cringe. And the cringe factor is important for growth, though. I tell myself. I cringe a lot. But now, I know for a fact, sometimes I go back a month ago, a week ago, I'm like, damn, I really did that. Like, I'll analyze everything. It's like, I'm my biggest critic, but it's good because now I'm more confident in myself because I know I'm getting better, right? Lastly, where can we find you? What can we expect? Tell me all about it.
But I would love, if you guys have any questions, want to reach out, it's Public Speaking Lab on Instagram, 100%. TikTok, YouTube, LinkedIn. Yeah, so at Public Speaking Lab. Mm-hmm. And September, I'm going to be launching a new edition of my book, End Boring.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, my book is called End Boring, a tactical approach to public speaking and communication. And just recently, over the last year or two, because I wrote it maybe 4 or 5 years ago, I added there was more I wanted to say, and instead of making a whole new book, I just added to this book, and it's going to be launching I believe September 12th.
So it's finished and everything, and you're just kind of like...
We're just in the final phases of like the copyright and the marketing. And I'm probably going to do a bunch of virtual events that I'll announce on Instagram. Cool. I'm going to like do like a big, like anyone around the world wants to come. We'll do and super fun, interactive online networking where you're going to meet people from around the world.
That's amazing. And you said you were an author before as well, correct?
Yeah.
So how many books have you published now?
I published 2.
Okay.
And the one you need to remember is End Boring.
End Boring. Perfect.
I like it's live what I preach.
Live what you preach.
Yeah.
Well, that seems that. Thank you so much again for coming on.
Hey, it's been a lot of fun. It's been my pleasure. Thank you all for listening, and listen more. Write and comment so we grow this podcast.
Definitely. Take care, guys.